Welcome to the Choose Wisely podcast. I am your host, Nderi, and we're here to talk about life, faith, relationships, and also getting into my music taste later on. So where did Choose Wisely come from? I took some time to meditate on what I should share with you all something that could help us make better choices, especially when life gets complicated. I thought about how important it is to be intentional with the decisions we make, whether it's about people we hang out with, how we handle our faith, or our character in the world. I want this podcast to be a space where we talk about all of that. Not only that, but my hope is that we can grow together sharing wisdom and experiences that help us navigate life in a way that actually makes sense. So first, I want to dive into this talk on wisdom and wisdom in our daily lives, and the idea of exactly counting the cost. Luke 14 verse 26 through 28 says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not bear his cross, come after me, cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it?" So I want to pause right there. I want you to imagine this, right? So imagine there's two ladders. One is on the left and the other is on the right. And one that goes all the way up to the right is the things that God has promised, and all the things on the left is what the world has to offer. And so I want you to think of somebody like Kai Cenat, for example. Kai Cenat, he's a big streamer, he's a big influencer, content creator, all those things. He has a huge audience. And so Kai, with all the success that he has had in his life, and how he's constantly said that without God and his audience, none of this is possible. Imagine Kai before he blew up. And so let's put him in the middle of this ladder. So we put him here, we put him in the middle, the ladder going right and the ladder going left. And so if he was to put his foot on the right and the left, the more he goes up, he can't fit his legs on both of them, right? Or anybody, matter of fact. Anybody that would be in the middle and one leg is going up right and one to the left, at some point you're gonna have to jump all the way left or jump all the way right. Let's say if God tells him that I don't want you to stream, and he says I want you to follow me, just like how the disciples did when Jesus told them to follow him. And so remember, some of the disciples had families. These guys were tax collectors and fishermen, and they still dropped everything to follow Jesus, right? So back to verse 28, and still keeping the Kai Cenat scenario in our minds, my question for you is, how far are you willing to go? Or have you had the thought that there is more? Because when we first encounter God, it's unnatural, or it's just clocking in and clocking out of being a Christian. And when we first come to Christ, we're like, oh, God did this for me. He gave me that new car, he got me that new house, that wife, that husband, whatever. And yeah, you get the point. But when it becomes a daily thing, all of a sudden we turn into Miles Morales, and eventually we just want to do our own thing, right? Now in this moment is when we realize the patterns that we've been going on, and to essentially bring our flesh down. Because of Galatians 5:17, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says how the flesh lusts against the spirit and the spirit against the flesh. Pretty much they're contrary to one another. So then how then do we fight against our flesh using wisdom? First, we have to identify wisdom as a spirit, and not just an opportunity to add knowledge somewhere. Because if we're going on with that statement, then anyone can give you wisdom based off that alone. The girl that works at Starbucks for some time can give you knowledge about coffee and how Starbucks can make certain drinks or whatever. Or the guy who works at Wendy's, or the CVS worker. Anyone that really has experience in that place that they've been for a while can share whatever. I want you to know first that wisdom is a force. Not only does it give you insight for the truth, but it gives you insight for the future. It causes you to understand what others can't see. So now if that ability is in us and it's not done It's not that you're just going to be considered a fool off the bat. It's just that there's a lack of understanding. Proverbs 3:19, it says that the Lord by wisdom founded the earth, by understanding he established the heavens, by his knowledge the depths were broken up, and clouds dropped down the dew. My son, let them not depart from your eyes, keep sound wisdom and discretion. And you can go on and finish the rest of that chapter, but I want the understanding to be that wisdom at its core is for the earth. So the book of wisdom is not all that wisdom has to offer, right? The book of Proverbs, it lays down the foundations of how to be wise on earth. And so Proverb has 31 chapters, and then there's 31 days in each month, right? So what I do is I read a chapter of Proverbs a day, then I pick a verse or two throughout that day, then meditate on it throughout the day, whether I write it down and tape it on a mirror, screenshot it, put it as my background, or write it on my hand, whatever the case is. I don't read it just for good morale or just to check it off a list, but whatever I meditate on goes to my mouth, right? And so whatever comes from my heart will flow out of my mouth. And so next is the power of wisdom. And so wisdom grants you the power to say what you should say, do what you need to do, think what you need to think, go where you need to go. And that leads into Philippians 2:13. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. And so he's talking about the wisdom that works in us, the wisdom that works in us both to do and to will, the wisdom that works into what we should say, what we should do, what we should think, all of those things, where we should go. Another question. So how do we tell who is wise and who's not wise? So first, you can tell if someone is wise based on how they speak or how they act. And people do this trend and they say we listen and we don't judge. And I'm like, yeah, I judge. And for those who don't know what the trend is for some reason, and you're just not on the internet, an example would just be sitting down in front of some friends or like a small audience. I'll be like, James, hey, remember that time we went down to the beach and I forgot my toothbrush? I didn't go out to buy one, I just used yours. And then everyone would say, we listen and we don't judge. And that trend, people would judge with their eyes already. You can see people looking at the camera. You can see people judging already just based off of the fact that they really just said that. So it pretty much just makes the trend pretty redundant. And really the whole trend is just to pretty much clip farm. And I'm not just saying I judge off of first impressions, because Jesus says, do not judge appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. And so also to answer this very long question is in 1 John 4 verse 1. It says, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. What we need to do is just ask the Holy Spirit, because he's our helper, to check someone out before just removing barriers that don't need to be removed. We're just pouring out to somebody that can't really help edify ourselves in Christ, because people are watching what you say and do, no matter your status, right? So lastly, wisdom is able to keep you at peace, where you don't have to worry about any sickness, any disease, what you're lacking, your wants, or anything that opposes the good life. So let Jesus become Lord over your mind. Let him become Lord over all your decisions, your thoughts, and your emotions. And so dealing with the mind, I want to shift gears and head into music. And so number one, music is for the soul, or really it goes straight to the soul. And that's why instruments or even voices are able to reach certain notes that can trigger your emotions, or even like the force of somebody, like let's say somebody like Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber is able to make all these girls cry because what their music's done for them. But then I want to shift our focus on what music is, because as soon as we listen to something, it captures us pretty quick. Like either that beat that you hear in Walmart. There's a time I was in Walmart with a friend and we were just walking and we hear Billie Eilish. And Billie Eilish sings a lot of sad songs, and I'm like, why am I in this Walmart listening to this sad music? Like at least put on like some type of like some beat snapping or something. But at the same time, it's like it catches you pretty quick. So let's say if I'm going into buy some jeans, and all I'm doing is just hearing the beat, and I'm just tapping along, and I'm not really paying attention what's going into my heart, really. Like Kendrick Lamar and the whole Drake thing, and he's singing Not Like Us, but then everyone's just dancing to it like we're doing the Cupid shuffle. Are we not paying attention to what this guy just said? Out of that scenario of music, that's where I just want to close into. And some artists that I can suggest to you right now at the moment that are personally my favorite is, number one is his name is Dunsin Oyekin. He's from Nigeria. He's a great praise and worship leader. Also, we have Elevation Worship. Elevation's probably, and Dunsin are probably my top two. Travis Green and Forward City Music. Colby, Called Out Music. Forrest Frank. Sunday. Caleb Gordon, Elevation Rhythm, and Endless Ocean. And so there's definitely music that you can listen to. You can replace the secular music away from the non-secular. And it's not like it's just gonna happen overnight, whereas, well, for some people it do. Sometimes there's people that just delete playlists, their whole Spotify or their whole Apple Music playlist. But just like the app, it's gonna take time for the app to realize that you're listening to this music now. You can change all your music, but then the recommendations are still going to be Drake and all these other people. But then it's just going to take time over and over. Or so something like a glass of water that has rocks in it, the more water I put in, the more rocks that are going to fall out. The more water that I pour in, or the more music that I listen to, or the more time I spend fellowshipping with God and the things of that like, the more my spirit gets stronger and my flesh gets weaker. And when I bring out music, I want to share some type of acknowledgement that there's more. So shifting gears once more, I want to give a vote of thanks out to the people that have listened. I don't take anything for granted. I thank God for even giving me this platform and just steering me in the direction. I want to leave things as it is, as just a baseline of what's to come. And if there's any questions, you can just put them down in the comments down below. You can also follow my socials at choose.wisely.pod. The links will also be in the description down below. Also, don't forget to just share love out to others. If you see somebody out there that has been struggling, like a homeless person, just hand them that $1. If you don't got $1, maybe you can just offer them water. If they don't want the water, hey, you tried. The best thing that happened was the intent out of your heart. With all that's been said, keep your head up, keep going, and choose wisely.